Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Welcome to my Twitch channel, and we will be exploring InfluxDB today. And thank you all for joining. Let me remove this banner now. I've done enough of the welcome. So what we are going to do now is I'll share the screen. Let's get started with InfluxDB 2.0. So before that, InfluxDB is a time series database, and it is basically any kind of eventing or any kind of time series data. For the time series data, you can use InfluxDB. It has two of the versions, like 1.x, which is 1.8, and it has 2.0. And the 2.0 one comes with a lot of pre-built components. So earlier, what happened was, earlier there was just earlier there were different components in InfluxDB, and you can still go to like InfluxDB 1.8. I believe there should be some way to go back to the, yeah, so you can select from here the version. So if you go to 1.8 and you see the the features wise, obviously it's a time series database designed to handle the read write queries, and it is basically the tech stack. The tech stack is Telegraf, influx capacitor, and what you call chronograph. So these are the four components: Telegraf, InfluxDB itself, which is the database; chronograph as a visualization engine; and capacitor as a data processing engine. So that's how traditionally the still the 1.x version would look like this. So you have your Telegraf. So what Telegraf is? Telegraf is basically an agent which has more than 200 plus plugins to scrape metrics from. So you might have heard of Prometheus if you are from the Kubernetes world, or you might need. So basically, you need metrics. Now, there are different ways you can grab the metrics. One way, a very good way, is using Telegraf. So Telegraf is an agent for collecting and reporting the metrics. So it has something called input plugins and output plugins. So input plugins, it can scrape data from n number of sources. N by n, I mean to say by 200 plus different sources it can pull the data from. So you can have different input sources like databases, networking, messages. I can show you actually Telegraf input sources. We are not going to spend more than a minute on Telegraf. So if you say plugin type input, you can see these are the set of input plugins, and you can see how many are they. So you have your Jenkins is there, you have Kubernetes, you have memory, you have MongoDB, MySQL, NFS, Nginx. So there are n number of plugins that you can use. Same is for the output. So you have the 46 output plugins where you can post the data. So the data will automatically be transformed into the output that you define. You can output as an exec, you can output as a file, you can output to InfluxDB, obviously. So you have your InfluxDB outputs as well. So that's where your Telegraf is used. Now these are separate. Now in 1.x, these components are separate. Chronograph is just like you can think of it like as Grafana, and InfluxDB is the actual time series database where your queries and where your queries are stored. Where your data is stored and you query on that. So these all components were separate in 1.x. Now in 2.x, what they have done is in 2.0, all the components are built in. So you have basically the tech stack is pre-built in your 2.x. So you don't have to specifically install chronograph or things like that. So what we'll do is Influx 2.0 is again same definition remains same, right? The purpose to build, store, process, visualize metrics, and these are some of the installation options. So just let's first see how to install, and then it will be more clear why, how you can use it. So basically it's a time series database. So what will be the use case? So you have time series database, and you can grab metrics with the high intensity, that like you are pushing very high volume of data, ingesting extreme data on very short intervals of time, and you want to visualize it, and you want to query it, and you want to see how things work. So all these and query it fast. So when you query over the interval of like a day or 2 or 6 months, so all these things should be possible. And then you should be having your down sampling of the data, so that should be easily available. So all those features are available, and time series data is actually needed for everything. Now whether you go to the industries, you have your big machines which are running, and or IoT sensors that are running, they are pushing the data to InfluxDB. And these IoT sensors can be IoT devices can be like whether they are running, whether they are overheating, whether they are whether they need any sort of maintenance activity. So all these per second or per millisecond of data can be sent to InfluxDB, and it can query and process that very fast. So another of the very, very, very big use case is Kubernetes. So I will be actually doing an Influx days talk on Kubernetes monitoring and using InfluxDB and the templates, all those things. So if you want to know more about like why InfluxDB, I mean why time series data is so important in the Kubernetes ecosystem, and how InfluxDB fits in the Kubernetes ecosystem, I'll be showing that. But for now, what we want to do is now we know like we have some sort of time series which is important. There are a lot of use cases where the time series data is important, and InfluxDB can be used. Now how we can use InfluxDB is the next question. So we are in the documentation. I went to the quick start guide and it pointed me here. So it says you can start a local cluster, and you can have, I already have a cluster, so I'll just deploy this particular file. This particular file is nothing but it's a stateful set of InfluxDB 2.0, and it's a service, so probably nothing else, nothing much fancy is there. So you have this. Now what we'll do is and also instead of port forward, what we'll do is we'll just make it, I mean let's create it and do it to node port and see what happens. So kubectl get nodes. This is for quick setup. Oops, kubectl get nodes. So this is basically the quick setup. Let's see how it works, the quick start, kind of quick start guides. So this is my cluster, and I'll apply the YAML. It'll create a stateful set, namespace, a stateful set and service. So kubectl get svc. And what we'll do is we'll change this to node port so that I can access it outside the cluster. I mean, you can, I already have ingress, so I can create a ingress rule as well, which is much more good. We can create an InfluxDB ingress because we already have this. Okay. Let's grab the IP. What was the node port? Okay. We haven't seen the node port yet of Influx. So node port is 30947. Let's go here, 30947. I hope the InfluxDB has the pod is come up actually. kubectl get pod -n influx db. Let's see. Okay, the pod is running, so we should be good there. And it's loading. So we have to give a username. So let's give a username, Twitch, and password. Super secret password. And then the organization name is, let it be Twitch. And let's give the initial bucket name. A bucket is where your time series data is stored with a retention policy. And organization is a workspace for a group of users requiring access to the time series data, dashboard, and the resources. So we can have multiple buckets for multiple projects and multiple organizations. Interesting. So let's create a bucket name Twitch, or bucket name can be demo. The username is Siam Twitch. Password is super secret password. I mean, not super secret password, but a super secret password. And organization name is Twitch and demo. Okay, let's continue and see if it works. Awesome, you are ready to go. So what we are, it says quick start, and it says advanced, and it says configure later. What do we want to do here? what do we want to do here? What do we want to do here? I Okay, let's go via the quick start route and see what all things are there. So this is the dashboard, the basic dashboard, and you can load your data, you can build a dashboard, and you can set up the alerting fancy, and you can get started with Flux. So you have to write, there is a query language called Flux, and this Flux query language is basically all in one language. Previously, Influx was using InfluxQL, and they have switched. And as so, okay, let me take it back. So consider Telegraf. So we have seen the growth of Telegraf. A lot of community plugins. We have more than 200 plus plugins with the contribution from the community. Now with the same mindset, the Flux language was created. So let me just quickly show you. So Flux is Influx Data's functional data scripting language that is built for all sorts of things. Now, usually what happens is we query in one language, and then we write a code in Python or other language to process that data, do machine learning on that data, and then to act on that data, we use some other tooling. But what the main goal of Flux is, you have everything. So it is designed for all three: querying, analyzing, and acting on the data. So you can do all three things from the Flux itself. So it is basically designed to be usable, readable, flexible, and you can do all sort of thing. Syntax wise, you have to learn a bit. There is actually a Flux training which has to happen. I don't know how many slots are there. Just you can add the rate Influx Data and ask for if Flux training seats are available, and do enroll it. I did one of the trainings, and it's pretty awesome. So it's very fairly simple. So you have first is from the buckets, then is the range. So range is basically your time that you want to query the data from. Then you apply some of the filters. Now there are a lot of filters, and then you have a lot of group keys and the functions as well. So all these things would be there, and you can just getting started with Flux. The documentation looks fine, and you can query with them, common queries, execute queries, a lot of what you call a lot of documentation is there, and a lot of things are already there that will teach you the basics of the language. But if you want a more deep dive session from scratch, probably recommended is going by the Flux training. And there are 2 sessions that I did on YouTube as well. YouTube Flux. Yeah. So I did 2 sessions. On one is on the Flux query language. You can see the part 2 Flux deep dive. I don't know, it's part 1 Flux deep dive or part 2 Flux deep dive. I think it's the deep dive one. So there should be a part 1 as well somewhere. Anyways, so this one is there. So I'll share it in the channel. So I've done a couple of videos on the Flux as well. So Flux is interesting, and I did try my best to explain it well on Flux. Anyways, let's not divert from InfluxDB to Flux. It's very easy to deviate in multiple zones when you are learning InfluxDB, because there are tons of things. So what do we do over here now? So we have data. So I went to the data, and it has sources. Now I have different client libraries maintained by Flux, from where I can programmatically send data very easily. So I can use Go, Python, PHP, Kotlin, Ruby to send the data. Yeah. So what we'll do is let's go to Telegraf itself. So we have Telegraf here, and we have our tokens. So basically, this is the token that we can generate, and this is the token that has to be used in whenever you're trying to connect to InfluxDB via the client libraries as well. So okay, InfluxDB Python send data new stack. I wrote a blog last year in December itself, a few months ago, where I have shown how to send data to via the Python client. So how to deploy the Kubernetes cluster and how to use the InfluxDB Python client to send the data. So we have, it created, like we did we have the what you call the InfluxDB, and your service created, all those things are there. And then there is some, okay, I told you, like we can create the ingress, and then you can, yeah, this is the token. So the token is actually required in the Python file as a secret. So I'm using it as a secret, and you can then use it inside your what you call code. So inside the code you can have a secret, and then you can use it. So it's pretty straightforward how to use it. And then run it as a daemon set, and we can see this is the simple code, and we can see the data coming in. So you can see the data coming in. So that's a very neat and very easy example to do. So let's see what we can do over here. So that's what was about the tokens. Now we have a bucket. We already told we have a demo bucket, and we have a Telegraf. So let's create a Telegraf configuration. So what do you want to monitor? So Telegraf is a plugin based collection agent. We have already seen it, and which write metrics to InfluxDB bucket. So we can choose Kubernetes. We can click OK. Let's name this configuration as anything, Kubernetes, maybe, or something. Create and verify. Anyways, the graph looks like this, and you do the queries, and you have the script editor where you get the Flux language query as well. You can view the raw data and visualize how it is going in the Flux. That's pretty weird. Anyways, what happens is the metrics has to flow here, and we can view different visualization in the graphs while submitting. We can use, so you can see this is what the graphs look like, and this is where the script editor is. So it's very easy to have the script editor. So this is the Flux query language. So you have your from the bucket, and then you have your timestamp, the range basically from the start and stop points. Then you have the aggregate window and anything that you want to yield. So different set of operations are there, which are pipe forwarded to one after the other. And then you can see this. Also, you can see the raw data. So basically how the data filtering is actually happening. So it always have your tables, and how it filters the data based on that. So that is also very interesting to see. Then you have the InfluxDB metrics, and your boards basically. So you can have different boards, so you can see like what all things are there. So this is, I think, the dummy data which is there, and you can see that there are different modes. Like the dark mode, and this particular thing. And then you have your tasks. So you can create different tasks, and you can create different tasks from a template. And then you have alertings that you can check, and you have your templates. So you can actually directly look up for the template. So these are the set of templates which gives you the basic dashboards, pre-built dashboards by the community. So you can have the templates. So like for example, we can take any template. It won't work anyway, so we can take the template, and we can just have the, we can do InfluxDB apply, or we can do maybe the URL directly. Let's see. Let's go back here where it is. Come on. Yeah, I think we can directly look up the template. Yeah, you can see that Raspberry Pi system, this template is there. It has a readme, and I can just install the template onto the cluster, and it will create a lot of things. Like it will create the dashboards. So it has created a dashboard, and I can go to the dashboard and see. Obviously the results won't be there because I don't have the metrics, but you can see the dashboards with the pre-built dashboards and all will be there. already for you in the board section. So that's the power of influx data. It has community, it has the influx data maintained client libraries, the community maintained telegraph plugins. A lot of them are InfluxDB supported, and there's a dedicated Telegraf team at Influx who is continuously supporting all the InfluxDB Telegraf plugins. Then you have the buckets where data is actually stored. You have tokens that you can refresh based on that. You have to scrape metrics. I mean, either the Telegraf can send the metrics, or the what you call the programming wise, you can use the tokens to send the metrics. So yeah, pretty interesting stream. We learned a lot, and we didn't you were able to not able to use the Telegraf running inside the Kubernetes cluster. You can easily run it if you have the, I mean, easily run it as a binary, download Telegraf, and use it with a different configuration that it already explains when you were going in the data and the Telegraf, and you can easily run it from here in the from the sources. But the only part is we have to make it work by the Helm. I'll work on that and let you know how it goes. So that's pretty much it from my end.